Right, so we're going to do a pre-match show for the Dorking Wanderers home games. So we're here at Meadowbank with me, James and Tom. Tom, you do the commentaries, don't you? And you do the pre-match interviews and post-match interviews with Mark. And I do the podcast and various other things around the club. So we wanted to get something out like a lot of other clubs do, pre-match, have a discussion, put it out on YouTube and social media. We can discuss the team and how the season's been going and kind of run this as a bit of a pilot today and see how we go. And if people give us suggestions of things to do and make it fun over the coming weeks and stuff, and we've got some time to have a think about that because there isn't a home game after today for a while, so we can go from there. So Tom, you've got some stuff you wanted to chat about, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I think as a pilot episode, I think the best way to start is to kind of look at the season, how it's gone so far compared to, say, pre-season expectations. Yeah. Me personally, although it may seem like a kind of being really negative, personally I think it's kind of been underwhelming a little bit. I know injuries kind of hindered that, and it has a lot, but if you look back towards the back end of last season where we were picking up wins, climbing the table when needed to pick up results, and it kind of feels a little bit like we've gone back to what it was kind of this time last year where kind of playing our way into trouble, a lot of silly mistakes, a bit lacklustre at times, and being honest, especially in the last couple of games, kind of not really looking too threatening going forward. And I know, and that's kind of relevant with the lineups we've seen in the last couple of weeks. You know, playing without a striker and sometimes playing, George Frankham, who's a fullback out wide, etc. So I think it's kind of been overall a struggle, but they're weathering the storm a little bit. Players are coming back to fitness now. You look at the lineup we'll go through in a second now. There's players that are coming back into the lineup, and we'll start to see more of that normal Dorking way of football, more kind of technical based players getting more involved. Actually, we're having direct wingers. But for me, that's kind of where we are at the moment so far in the season. Yeah,
I think I'd have to agree. Actually, I mean, I think it has been a bit underwhelming at times. I think there's probably been points dropped here at home, definitely, that looking back you think that they were definitely points dropped when we drew against Eastleigh and York and when we lost against Kidderminster and Dagenham and Redbridge. No disrespect to those teams, but we beat Dagenham convincingly at home last season, and then this season. But we have obviously been struggling with injuries, but I don't know whether it's just been that, because it has felt quite flat at home this season at times as well. I don't know whether the attendances are down or what that's down to really, but it has felt like the atmosphere and the crowd hasn't been perhaps as intense and behind the side as much as it has been in recent years, especially often like attacking the bank end down here in the second half, where over the last few years it's almost felt like the crowd has been worthy of at least one or two goals in some of those games. Whether there's been those kind of performances to get everybody up out of their seats and stuff, I don't know whether that's been part of the reason and lacking that kind of spark, but definitely. But start of a new year now, first game at home, and hopefully, as you said, Tom, with players coming back, some of those attacking threats, because thankfully we didn't really lose too many. We seem to be blessed in the numbers department in terms of defenders that we've been able to cover that, but it's kind of further up the pitch, isn't it, where we've suffered with those kind of flair players and those attacking players and players with pace, which are always going to be a threat, and missing a kind of a central focal point as a striker really, and we might as well go through the team now then, because that's one thing that sort of jumps off the page straight away, isn't it?
When I came in today and I already put the lineups on the screen, I was thinking, who's playing up front? We've got kind of 5 or 6 central midfielders playing, and I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that's going to be Luke Moore and Charlie Carter as the two up front, if presumably they're playing the normal normal shape.
Yeah, so obviously we've got Harrison in goal, who's been absolutely brilliant this season. Probably got us over the line on Monday against Oxford with some of those saves that he made in that game there. Particularly, although I was down the far end, where he made that decision to come out one-on-one and smother that shot, made that quite early on. And then in the back three, Tony Craig, Hayden Hollis and Fuller is back today as captain. Obviously back to fitness. Although having said that, I thought Isaac Philpott played really well on Monday as well.
You always know what you're going to get from Isaac, don't you?
Pardon?
You always know what you're going to get from Isaac.
Yeah, and the key, what is always good with Isaac is that he comes in from the cold quite often in periods where he hasn't played for ages and steps up as though he's been in the side all season.
Yeah.
And I thought that was evident on Monday. He always gives 100%. You know, he always plays for the shirt and stuff. And he'd probably be a bit disappointed to be back on the bench today. And then in midfield, through centrally, obviously Niall was back centrally, having come off the bench on Monday and opened the scoring at Oxford. And I think that is his best position in this team, as that energy, just getting through the midfield as well. And then Josh Taylor again, and then you've got the wide players, Briggs on the right and Seb on the left, and then, like you've already said, Tom, Luke Moore and Carter. And I guess the emphasis is on probably Josh Taylor. Oh, Dan Piper's obviously there. So we're not starting with 10. We have got 11 and we have got 5 on the bench. And obviously Pybus is back in from the start today, having come on the other day. And obviously you've got Isaac, Bobby Joe Taylor, return of Jason Pryor on the bench today, Dan Gallagher and Tom Blair obviously being eased back from his injury. And again, I think it's quite good that on Monday at Oxford, Tom wasn't needed. So it's another week where he can kind of get back up to match fitness, and we've gone from having no wide players to now being sort of overloaded with those that can play on the wing again. So I think the emphasis obviously with those bodies up front would be to get the midfield players up there, Josh Taylor and Niall again to support Carter and Moore, to add bodies into the box when going forward, knowing that they've got Dan Piper sitting there behind as well. And that's how I kind of envisage today playing out, and perhaps the introduction of Pryor and any of the others on the bench at any point as well.
Well, for me, I think Pybus is a really, not underrated, but he's a pivotal way in how Dorking play. Whereas previously, where it's been out, it's kind of been a rotation. Sometimes it's McManus, sometimes it's been Gallagher. Yeah. And no disrespect to those players, but they're not as comfortable on the ball when receiving, the ball off the defence compared to Pybus.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a lot of where, not nervy, but you kind of have a heart in your mouth kind of moment when playing out from the back, and they don't seem to they're unaware of kind of, they've already been pressing and they're not really unsure. But with Pybus, it's a lot more composed. You can kind of see it in the way he plays. Is very much, he knows what's going on around him. He knows what his next pass is going to be. Similar to Oldacre 2 years ago. Yeah. That kind of player where he's going to get the ball turn, and if he needs to, he can ping the ball there. He can ping the ball there. Yeah. And that's especially with Briggs and Bauman. That's a lot of pace that we've kind of been lacking throughout the whole season. Yeah. Could have said that last year. Could have said that for a number of years. But the lack of pace up front. Yeah. But Bauman and Briggs, you've got two very direct wingers who want to get at the fullbacks. Bauman on the left, obviously, he wants to come inside, and Briggs very happy to go around the outside. Yeah. So again, a bit more. Fullback's got to think a little bit. But the only problem I really see, I saw it against Oxford, was get the ball out wide, and then there's no one to cross it into. Yeah. So again, that's kind of comes into the lack of forward department.
The crosses have got to be different, haven't they? They've got to be lower, or sort of the build-up's got to be a bit more structured rather than just putting something in the box that somebody's going to gamble on or win that first header, and it's going to drop to somebody else. And that's obviously we're obviously going to miss McShane with his injury, so we wish him well, and hopefully he'll be coming down to watch the games and stuff like that and be around the club. But pivotal part in terms of dropping, when any of those second balls ever dropped down in the box, wasn't he? He was always kind of on hand to kind of mop up a lot of what maybe Pryor or Ottaway had been able to do. Obviously Ottaway's missing out today. I believe he's injured. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Tom. And I think going back to what you were saying about Pybus, it was evident when he came on Monday. One of the first things he did actually was he got it and he instantly sprayed it for Briggs, like a 50-60 yard diagonal over the top of the fullback, and then Briggs was on the run without having to break stride to take on their left fullback. And I think no disrespect to Dan Gallagher, but his game probably isn't suited to that. He's probably much more suited to those kind of dogfight games in the middle, where it's 100%. Very, very much sort of breaking up play and stuff like that, whereas Pybus can do that as well, but he can also get those passes in over the fullback's head, very much how we played of old, where we would look to get those diagonal balls when Oldacre was here as well. Yeah.
Well, if you think about look ahead at today's opposition, Oldham again, that's got to be one of, if not the biggest club in terms of stats. Obviously ex-Premier League, first Premier League team to drop down into non-league, and should be a big crowd today. And I know last year they kind of thumped us, didn't they?
Yeah,
I think it was 5-1. But in terms of the away games, I know you went to the away game this year and last year, but felt kind of in it. It kind of, if you look at in terms of on paper of just the stature of the clubs, to even be competing with the likes of Oldham is amazing. Yeah,
I mean, when we went to Boundary Park this year, we should have won that game. It wasn't a particularly brilliant game, but second half it did open up, and we were fitter, stronger, finished stronger. Obviously, you had the goal that wasn't given, where the ball clearly went over the line. But not just that, but we did have numerous chances in that second half where perhaps with a bit better final ball or a bit of composure, that wouldn't have made much difference because we would have probably have won anyway. I think it's obviously always going to be a difficult game. They seem to have turned a corner, don't they, under their new manager. They're winning away, which was one of their problems before. Their sort of home form's been a bit indifferent, but they have started winning away. Today by no means is not going to be an easy game at all, and obviously they're well supported. Their supporters travel well, so they're going to be very very much behind their side down here as well. Almost, which we haven't, other bar Woking and Aldershot, we haven't really seen too much of this season, have we?
Well, no,
with away fans packing in that far in, and I've seen that their flags are up already, and so it does promise to be a decent game and a good atmosphere. And thankfully, touch wood, it's not raining at the moment or anything, and shortly all their fans will start piling in, and it should make for a good game actually today.
And well, the two clubs I'd say this is probably Dorking's friendliest club in the National League between the two sets of supporters on and off the field. Obviously Frank Rothwell doing his what's it? He's not rowing. Is he rowing across it?
Rowing across it.
And I know Mark's very supportive of him, and they always kind of I saw it in the bunch of amateurs where Mark went up to their kind of corporate bit and gave a little speech. So you don't normally see that from managers.
No, I was in there. I was in that hospitality bit for that day. So I was in that hospitality bit. He came in before the match. Afterwards, we'd already gone. I didn't realise he'd gone back in there afterwards as well after the game. So that's obviously massively like a one-off, really. But that's like the relationship between the two clubs, I think, isn't it? So it's not going to be easy. We're lacking players, but maybe the Wanderers gods haven't been too kind to us in 23, especially at home. So maybe they'll be back with us today. Let's hope so.
Well, I was going to say that one of the key points that I spoke to Mark last week was that not really picking up too many points at home compared to last year. If you look back to last year, I remember saying throughout the whole season, I think we only picked up 1 point north of Watford last year away from home. And if you look at this season, beat Halifax, beat Hartlepool. Or just off the rip. And you compare that to the home form this year, where last year the home form was kind of like you relied on it. And this year it kind of feels like the opposite. I don't really know what you put that down to.
It has been strange at home this year. Like I say, it does feel a bit subdued sometimes at home, even with decent attendances. It does still feel quite subdued, and I don't know whether that's. I don't know what that's. General sort of like malaise around the ground, or people not quite with it really, and sometimes that does feel like it's coming across onto the pitch. And I know that when we get sort of low crowds, you can hear the players more than you can hear the fans, and that's not the sort of thing that you kind of really associate or you want to be hearing, because you want to be hearing the noise and stuff like that, rather than conversations or players talking to each other or calling and stuff like that. So hopefully that starts to pick up. I think obviously with results and things like that will hopefully change that, and getting a few people in the ground and having a drink and stuff like that should liven that up and mean that the atmosphere hopefully starts to improve a little bit at home. I can't really talk in terms of the atmosphere because I've got the headphones on the commentary, so for me I can't hear anything that's going outside of it, because I can just hear myself, so I can't actually hear anything. But I kind of noticed it in the crowd where I know last year you had Wrexham and Notts County, then whenever they were playing, they bring in loads of fans, and even through the neutral fans, it brings in loads of people as well. So having those two big clubs out of the league, I think it makes a big impact, not just for Dorking, but in terms of across the league attendances. I think you're right. I think it does massively, because they, as you can see now, they're both performing really well in League Two, and their attendances are still really, really good, and their hardcore support that will travel them all over the country. And we haven't really had that here this season. And hopefully today is the start of that. And I know that there's been a lot of games called off today locally. So as well, if games are called off, hopefully people will come down here, take the opportunity to come down here, get a ticket and come in. The game's always on the 3G. So let's hope there's a good crowd, a good atmosphere, and a good result, and a good performance on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, what do you reckon the score's going to be? Score predictions?
So I think Dorking are going to win today, 2-1. That's what I think.
You think?
Yeah.
I'm not as optimistic as you, James. I'm not as optimistic as you. It's you never know what you're going to get with Dorking. That's the thing. You're either going to get in, they're going to be like, look unbeatable, or they're going to look like a Sunday morning team. And there's no really in the middle part. But I'm going to say 1-1.
I knew you were going to say it, but I knew you were going to go for a draw. You just played it safe, didn't you?
Even though we never really draw, we haven't really drawn too many games.
We don't get many draws at home. No.
I just don't. I don't know. I struggle to see without a striker. I don't know. We've said this already, but it's hard to score goals when you don't have a focal point.
Staying in the game for longer is more beneficial, and that's what we didn't do Boxing Day. But we did it on Monday at Oxford, where we stayed in that game for long periods, so that when the substitutes did come on and we freshened things up, and we did, because that game was there to be won on Monday, much as it was on Boxing Day. And thankfully on Monday we seized that initiative and became more attacking in the second half, and pushed further up the pitch and got more bodies in and around the box. I don't think perhaps with the personnel or the way that we were playing in the first half we would have scored those 2 goals. Niall adding an extra body, having that shot from the edge of the box, and then the second goal where the keeper just spilt Bobby Joe's cross and Seb just tapped it in, and maybe in the first half we didn't have those bodies in and around the box to be able to have done that. So I think with that lineup, I think it's really important that if you're not setting your stall out to win and go gung-ho attacking wise, stay in the game for as long as possible, so that you've got something to cling to if it does start getting late on, and you can take a point.
I think that's kind of going to be what's going to, in my head, how it's going to play out today with the lack of focal point in the team. You don't want to go behind early. So I think how I see it planning out is a little bit cagey. I remember the Boxing Day game was very first half was awful. Yeah, it was. in terms of the quality, in terms of the quality and attacking from both sides. Both sides kind of playing not to lose, and I kind of see Oldham coming here thinking they can get a win. That's how I see it. So I feel like it'd be Dorking on the back foot for the majority of the game, but equally wanting to try and play. But it's just that final third. It's kind of just been lacking a little bit. That's my how I see the game going, which is why I see it not too high scoring. Can't really too separate the two sides. Even though Oldham has some fantastic players. Fantastic players.
Right. Okay. So should we wrap it up there then, Tom?
Yeah.
So let us know what you think. Obviously, send us any feedback, any ideas of things moving forward. Obviously, we want to make this a regular thing and give us ideas of sort of things we can discuss, and obviously keep people engaged with the club. And we want this to be something that people can either watch before the game or after the game as well, and that interaction continues. So let us know what you think.